You're walking down a narrow Parisian street, the kind with cobblestones worn smooth by centuries of footsteps, and the air is thick with the scent of fresh pastries and a light, floral perfume, Alera's perfume. The streetlights cast a warm, hazy glow, and you're holding her hand, her fingers interlaced with yours, the familiar pressure, a comfort you've come to expect. You can hear the distant murmur of the city, a soft, hushed symphony that's just for the two of you. Everything feels perfect. So perfect, in fact, you probably wouldn't survive it if something happened. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you are right now and what time it is for you. Now, turn off the lights, maybe grab a pillow, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You remember the way her head rested on your shoulder as you watched the Eiffel Tower sparkle, a silent firework display just for you. She was quiet that night, a little more subdued than usual, but you chalked it up to the magic of the moment. As you stood there, under the city of 1,000 promises, you felt her hand tighten its grip on yours, a gentle squeeze that carried a weight you didn't understand then. You leaned in to kiss her, and you felt her press her forehead against your chest, her body a little more fragile than you remembered. It was right there, in the quiet, romantic hush of the Parisian night, that she made a silent promise, a vow to you that you couldn't hear. You just thought it was love, pure, unadulterated love, soaking into the very stones of the city around you. You had no idea it was a promise made out of fear, a silent commitment to protect you from a future you couldn't see, even if it meant sacrificing herself to do it. You're waking up in your Parisian hotel room, the morning light filtered through heavy drapes, and for a moment, the world feels utterly perfect. Alera is asleep beside you, her breathing soft and even, and you reach out to touch her hair, a gentle, familiar gesture. Then, a sudden, sharp gasp. She's clutching her head, her face contorted in a way you've never seen before, a flash of pure agony that makes your heart stop. You're panicking, calling her name, but she's not responding, her body shaking uncontrollably. You remember the way the hotel concierge's face went pale when you explained what happened, the urgency in his voice as he called for help. The sirens cut through the morning air, a harsh, brutal sound that had no place in the romantic tableau you had built. You're in an ambulance, Alera lying pale and motionless on the gurney beside you, her hand in yours, and you're just whispering her name over and over, as if saying it enough times will make everything okay. At the hospital, the sterile, cold reality of the situation sets in. You remember the sterile smell, the quiet, efficient movements of the nurses. You're waiting for what feels like an eternity, and when the doctor finally comes, his face is grim, his words a blur of medical jargon that you can barely process. You're trying to hold on to every word, but all you can really hear is the chilling summary, a rare, aggressive neurological disorder. It's an unheard of diagnosis, a cruel twist of fate that seems impossible. You remember the doctor's gentle, somber tone as he explained the prognosis, that there was no known cure, only treatments to manage the symptoms, and even those were not guaranteed. You're sitting there, in a plastic chair in a cold, impersonal hospital, and you feel the weight of 1,000 futures you had planned together, all of them crumbling to dust. It's a stark, brutal contrast to the soft, romantic moments you were sharing just hours before. The city of love had become a city of fear, and you're left to grapple with a new, terrifying reality. You're wandering through the hospital's sterile hallways, the fluorescent lights humming a quiet, monotonous tune. You feel numb, disconnected from the world around you. The doctor's words echo in your head. No known cure. But you can't accept that. You remember the old saying, The one about not giving up until you've turned over every stone. And that's exactly what you start to do. You're on your phone, a frantic blur of internet searches and medical journals, your fingers flying across the screen. You're searching for anything, a sliver of hope, a name, a clinic, anything that might challenge the doctor's pronouncement. It's like a desperate race against time, and you're the only runner on the track. Then, you stumble upon a forum for rare diseases, a little community of people sharing their stories, their struggles, their triumphs. And there, buried in a thread from years ago, you find it, a reference to an experimental treatment being pioneered at a small, remote clinic in the mountains of Switzerland. You remember the way your heart hammered in your chest as you read the details, a revolutionary procedure involving gene therapy and a biological donor. It's a long shot, a desperate last resort, but it's a shot, and that's all you need. You're not thinking about the cost or the distance or the risks. You're just thinking about Alara and the chance, however slim, that she could get better. You're making the calls, sending the emails, all of them filled with a single, desperate plea. You're talking to doctors, researchers, even the clinic's receptionist, your voice a little shaky, but your resolve as firm as a rock. This isn't just about finding a cure. It's about defying a diagnosis, about proving that your love is strong enough to find a way, even when there seems to be none. You're back in the hospital, the sterile smells and hushed tones feeling a little more familiar now. You've just finished a phone call with the Swiss clinic, and you're feeling a fragile sense of hope, a tiny flicker of light in the darkness. You walk into Alara's room, a smile on your face, ready to tell her the good news about the experimental treatment, about the glimmer of hope you found. But she's already awake, and there's a strange, distant look in her eyes. She's not asking about her diagnosis, she's asking about you, about how you're holding up, about whether you've eaten. You remember a small, almost imperceptible detail, the bandage on her arm, a tiny white patch you hadn't noticed before, a little dot where a needle must have been. You're confused, but you don't press the issue. What you don't know, what you couldn't possibly know, is that while you were desperately searching for a donor, she was secretly taking action. You remember her mentioning a new vitamin regimen the doctors had her on, a vague explanation you accepted without question. But those weren't vitamins. You remember the way she looked at you, a quiet, knowing look, as if she was holding a secret that was both a burden and a gift. She had found the same clinic, the same experimental treatment, but she had discovered a terrible truth you hadn't. The gene therapy required a donor with a near-perfect biological match, and the only person with that kind of match was her. She had been going through the initial procedures, the quiet, painful extractions, while you were still trying to raise funds. She was sacrificing her own health, her own strength, to be her own cure, a decision made in the quiet hours of the night, a promise made without your knowledge. You're back home, the sterile scent of the hospital replaced by the comforting, familiar smell of your own place. Alara seems to be getting better. The tremors are less frequent, her headaches have subsided, and the color is slowly returning to her cheeks. But something is off. You notice she's sleeping more than usual, a deep, heavy sleep that feels more like exhaustion. You remember the way she used to hum a little tune while making coffee in the mornings, a cheerful, wordless melody that always made you smile. She doesn't do that anymore. Her conversations are a little shorter, a little more clipped. It's nothing you can put your finger on, but it's there, a quiet, growing absence where her vibrant energy used to be. You find yourself watching her, a knot of worry in your stomach. She used to love walking in the rain, laughing as the drops plastered her hair to her forehead. Now, she watches it from the window, a blank expression on her face. You remember the time you tried to surprise her with a movie marathon of her favorite old films, the ones with the charming, slightly ridiculous plots. She sat through 2 of them, polite but distant, before excusing herself to lie down. It's like she's here, but not entirely here. It's a quiet withdrawal, a subtle fading that you can't understand. She brushes off your questions with a tired smile, telling you she's just a little worn out from the treatments. You accept her explanation, but your gut tells you there's more to it. It's a strange, unsettling feeling, a creeping sense of unease that something is wrong, something more profound than simple fatigue. And you're alone with that feeling, unable to voice it without making her worry. You're sitting in the living room, trying to work, but your mind keeps wandering back to Alara. She's in the other room, resting, and you're just surrounded by a silence that feels too heavy. You get up to make a cup of tea, and as you pass the desk, a small stack of papers catches your eye. It's her medical file, something you were supposed to look over together, but you'd put it off, not wanting to face the bleak details. You remember the old saying about curiosity killing the cat, but you can't help yourself. You pick up the top page, your eyes scanning the dates and times. They match the days you were noticing her strange exhaustion, the days she was supposedly just getting vitamins. Then you see it, a form you don't recognize. It's a consent form for an autologous gene donation. The word autologous swims into focus, a technical term you vaguely remember from your desperate internet searches. It means obtained from the same individual. The pieces click into place with a sickening thud. The dates on the consent form match the dates on her other papers, the dates of her extractions, the dates of the tiny, almost invisible bandages on her arm. She didn't find a donor, she became the donor. The experimental treatment wasn't a treatment for her, it was a treatment from her. She was sacrificing her own cells, her own biological essence, to be her own cure. You remember the way she looked at you in the hospital, the quiet, knowing look you couldn't decipher. It wasn't just love, it was a terrible secret, a promise she made to herself to save you from having to watch her fade away. You feel a wave of emotions, shock, betrayal, and a deep, gut-wrenching pain. The truth is a heavy weight in your hands, a truth that she chose to bear alone. You had been so busy searching for a miracle, you never imagined the miracle would come from her, a sacrifice so profound you don't know how you can ever repay it. You're standing in the doorway of her room, the medical papers still clutched in your hand, and your heart is a chaotic mess of love and anger and hurt. You remember the way the words felt in your throat, a dry, painful lump as you finally spoke the truth you had discovered. Why didn't you tell me? Her face, when she looked at you, was a mixture of resignation and sorrow. There was no defiance, no attempt to lie, just a quiet acceptance of the confrontation you had to have. She explained it all, in a voice that was soft and trembling, the details of the secret she had kept. You remember the reasons she gave you, and they were all about you, of course. She said she couldn't bear the thought of you watching her fade away, of you going through the pain of finding a donor, of the guilt you would feel if the treatment failed. I couldn't let you carry that weight, she whispered, and her words were like a physical blow. You wanted to scream, to tell her that she had no right to make that decision for you, to take on a burden that was yours to share. But all you could do was look at her, really look at her, and see the toll it had already taken. You remember how frail she looked, how the light in her eyes seemed a little dimmer, a direct consequence of her selfless act. The conversation was a dance of pain and sacrifice, of her unwavering love and your profound sense of betrayal. It was a terrible, beautiful moment, a raw exposure of the depths of her affection for you and the terrible weight of her decision. You didn't leave her room with answers. You left it with a new understanding, a new kind of love that was laced with the bitterness of a secret kept. You knew then that her sacrifice was not just for her life, but for yours. You're standing at the kitchen counter, trying to make a simple meal, but your hands are shaking a little. The air is still thick with the aftermath of your conversation. Alara is in the other room, and the silence between you is a heavy, almost physical presence. You're grappling with a new emotion, survivor's guilt. You remember her sacrifice, the sheer weight of it, and you're consumed by the thought that she suffered so you wouldn't have to. You're trying to care for her, to bring her food, to tuck her into bed, but every action feels tainted by the secret she kept. It's like you're in a house of cards, and every move you make could bring the whole thing crashing down. You recall the way her hand felt in yours when you walked with her to her appointments. She was getting better, the tremors were gone, the headaches were a thing of the past. But you couldn't shake the feeling that her recovery came at a price you didn't have to pay. She was getting better physically, but the emotional distance between you was growing, a chasm you didn't know how to bridge. You feel the constant, nagging guilt that you were not a partner in her decision, that you were not a part of her journey. You remember her saying, "I just wanted to spare you." But her words feel like a hollow echo in the vast emptiness of her secret. Healing is not a straight line, you realize. Her body is mending, but the bond between you is strained, fragile, and in a way, more broken than before. As the days turn into weeks, you notice the subtle shifts in her, the ones that aren't about her physical health at all. You remember the way she used to laugh, a little snort at the end that always made you smile. It's gone. Her laugh now is more of a quiet chuckle, a polite acknowledgement of a joke, but without the joyful abandon. You're walking with her in the park, and she stops to admire a rose bush. You recall the way she used to cup the petals in her hand, describing the intricate patterns and the delicate scent, a little bit like the sunscreen made from crocodile poop you remember from your trip to Bali. You probably wouldn't survive using that, by the way. But now, she just looks at the rose, a quiet, almost clinical observation. It's not just her personality that's changed, it's her way of interacting with the world that you're watching her, and you're suddenly terrified. The person you fell in love with, the vibrant, passionate Alara, is slowly, almost imperceptibly, fading away. Her memories are still intact. She remembers your first date, the little cafe with the terrible coffee, and the way you used to make her laugh until her stomach hurt. But the emotions attached to those memories are different. They're like old photographs. She can tell you what's in the picture, but she can't feel the warmth of the sun on her skin or the feeling of your hand in hers. The treatment, a life-saving miracle, has come with a price you could never have foreseen. It's not just her physical health that has been altered, it's the essence of her, the emotional core that made her, well, her. And you're left to wonder if the person she is now is a stranger, or if she's just a different version of the person you love. You're trying to go back to the way things were, but it's like trying to rebuild a sandcastle after a wave has already come and gone. The intimacy you once shared, the easy banter and silent understanding, has been replaced by a fragile, unspoken distance. You're sitting on the couch watching a movie, a comedy you both used to love, but her laughter is an echo now, a polite sound that doesn't reach her eyes. You try to tell her a story, a silly anecdote from your past, and she listens patiently, but you can feel the disconnect. It's not that she's not trying, it's that she can't. You find yourself doing all the talking, filling the silence with words, stories, and questions she answers with polite, one-word replies. You're desperate to find a way back to her, a way to connect with the person who is now a ghost of the woman you fell in love with. The physical Alara is here, she is with you, but the emotional Alara is 1,000 miles away, and you feel a profound loneliness you never expected. You remember the old saying about being lonely in a crowded room. Now you're lonely right next to the person you love most in the world. It's a new kind of challenge, a new kind of sacrifice, and it's yours alone to bear. You realize that her sacrifice wasn't just physical, it was a profound emotional one, and it left a chasm between you that you don't know how to cross. You're trying to find a way back to her, a way to connect with the woman she used to be. You decide to revisit the places from your past, a sort of emotional archaeology, hoping the old memories will spark something in her. You walk with her through the park where you had your second date, the one where you spent hours talking about your dreams. You recall how she'd pointed to a little patch of daisies and said she wanted to live in a house with a garden just like it. Now, you stand there and point to the same patch, and she just gives a small, polite smile. She remembers the memory, but the feeling, the hope, is gone. You're trying to hold on to the past for both of you, and it's a heavy burden to bear. You take her back to the tiny cafe where you had your first date, the one with the terrible coffee you both made fun of. You remember the way she looked at you over the rim of her cup, her eyes sparkling with laughter. Now, she just sips her coffee, her expression unreadable. You tell the stories, you recount the memories, but it's like you're telling them to a stranger. You're trying to remind her of who she was, hoping it will help her remember who she is now. But all you're doing is highlighting the distance between the two versions of her, the before and the after. And you're left with a terrible, sinking feeling that the woman you loved is gone, and this new version of her is a beautiful, empty shell. You're desperate to find a way to make her feel again, to make her remember what it was like to be passionate and joyful and full of life. You're at a small, intimate dinner with your close friends, a couple you've known forever. You're trying to have a normal night, to feel some semblance of the life you used to have. Alara is quiet, her answers polite but minimal, and your friends are trying to draw her into the conversation. But it's a losing battle. You can feel their concern, their unspoken questions. When you step out to grab something from the car, your friend, Sarah, follows you. You remember her face, etched with a mixture of concern and a little bit of judgment. "What's going on with her?" she asks, and you try to brush it off, to say she's just tired. But Sarah pushes, her voice softer now. She seems so detached. Did something happen between you two? The question hits you like a punch to the gut. She's not asking about Alara's illness. She's asking about your relationship. You realize that from an outsider's perspective, Alara's new distance looks like a rift between you. You can't tell her the truth. You can't tell her that Alara sacrificed herself and is now a different person because of it. It's too heavy a burden, too private a pain. So you just stand there, silent, letting her assume the worst. The misunderstanding creates a new, painful rift, a tear in your social fabric that you don't know how to mend. You feel a profound sense of isolation, a new kind of loneliness that comes from having to carry a secret that affects not just you and Alara, but everyone around you. You're sitting in a doctor's office, a new one, a specialist you found after countless hours of searching. You had to know, had to understand the why behind everything you were seeing in Alara. You're asking questions, the ones you've been carrying for weeks, about the long-term effects of the experimental treatment, about the emotional detachment, about the changes you've seen in her. The doctor is kind and patient, and as he speaks, a new truth, a more profound and heartbreaking one, begins to emerge. You remember his words, a gentle explanation of something you couldn't possibly have known. The treatment, he says, didn't just target the physical illness. It also had a subtle but significant effect on the parts of the brain responsible for emotional regulation and memory recall, that you're not just seeing an emotional detachment. You're seeing a fundamental rewiring. It's not that she's forgotten her memories of you. It's that the emotional weight, the feelings that made those memories special, have been dulled. He explains it with a gentle analogy. It's like the colors have been faded from a photograph. She can still see the image, but the vibrant hues of joy, sorrow, and love are no longer there. You sit in silence, the truth settling over you like a shroud. This isn't just a side effect, it's a part of the cure. She didn't just sacrifice her health, she sacrificed a part of her soul, a piece of the very essence that made her, her. And you're left with the devastating realization that the woman you loved, the one who gave so much of herself for you, is now a stranger in a way you could never have prepared for. You're sitting with Alara on the couch, the same one where you first realized the growing distance between you. You've just returned from the doctor, and the new information, the terrible, beautiful truth, is still heavy on your mind. You remember the way you felt when you first discovered her sacrifice, a mixture of anger and betrayal. But now, it's all gone, replaced by a profound, overwhelming love for her. You look at her, really look at her, and you see not a stranger, but a hero, a woman who gave up a part of herself for you. You realize that you've been clinging to a ghost of the past, to the woman she was, when you should have been embracing the woman she is now. You take her hand, and the touch is a little different now. It's not the same easy, familiar warmth, but it's still hers. You look into her eyes, and you can see a quiet acceptance there, an understanding of the profound change within her. "I love you," you say, and the words feel more honest and more true than they ever have before. You remember the vow you made to her in Paris, a promise to love her no matter what. You realize that this is the what. This is the challenge you both have to face. "I don't care about the past," you whisper, your voice thick with emotion. "I don't care about the woman you were. I care about the woman you are now. And I promise you, I will love her too. I will get to know her again, and we will build a new future together." You feel a single tear fall from her eye, a quiet acknowledgement of the new vow you have made, a promise to love her through a new kind of challenge, a new kind of sacrifice. You're not trying to resurrect the past anymore. You're building a new future, brick by brick, moment by moment. You're teaching her to laugh again, not by telling her old jokes, but by finding new ones, silly, simple things that make her chuckle. You're not talking about your old memories, you're creating new ones. You take her to a new cafe, one she's never been to before, and you watch her try a new flavor of pastry, her eyes lighting up with a quiet, childlike curiosity. You're not trying to make her feel the way she used to. You're just trying to make her feel, and that's enough. You realize that love isn't about holding on to a version of someone that no longer exists. It's about loving the person in front of you with all their imperfections, their changes, and their quiet transformations. Her sacrifice didn't just save her life. It gave you a new kind of love, a purer, deeper, more honest one. You're not just a partner now. You're her guide, her confidant, her memory maker. You're the one who fills in the emotional blanks, the one who helps her see the colors in the faded photograph of her own life. And you're not doing it out of a sense of duty or guilt. You're doing it out of a profound and unwavering love for the woman who, in her quiet, selfless way, gave up a part of herself for you. You realize that this is what true love is. It's not the grand, romantic gestures you see in movies. It's the quiet, daily act of loving someone for who they are, for who they were, and for who they are still becoming.